Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session on how to write good emails that people will respond to. Just to kind of set the tone before we get started, I want to clarify that this session will come primarily from the perspective of writing emails for sales outreach. But do know that it applies to almost anything else as well. So it could be you're writing an email to try and get an investor. You might be trying to write an email to get a friend to come out to a party with you. Not only email, could be anything. Could be a LinkedIn message, could be a Facebook post, and it could also be where you're trying to reach out to someone, maybe if you're trying to get a job, to do an informational interview. So a lot of the concepts that we will cover today speak to the tenets of human psychology, but do know that the angle that I'm going to be speaking from is primarily with a lot of language around sales outreach. So do keep that in mind. So we will go through some brief intros, and then we'll cover the content, and then I'll wrap up with some other Q&A and how else to work with me at the end. But let's jump to it. So of course, if it's your first time running or joining a webinar, I do encourage that you try not to multitask, turn off all your extra tabs, put your phone on silent, and do have pen and paper ready because we will cover a lot of information today. I do have the tendency to speak pretty quickly as well, and I will unapologetically go through that because I feel that there's a lot of great content, and I don't want to touch on the high level stuff where I just talk about what to do, but I actually want to show you how to do it. I want to actually go through a lot of case studies, a lot of examples, so that you really understand how good emails are crafted and kind of what goes on behind the scenes as well, the logic behind that. So that's it. So maybe let's dive into it. Do know that it is also a pre-recorded webinar. So if at any moment you have questions, you can just send me an email at any time. Here's my email on the screen. It's chin, CHIN, at classynarwhal, CLASSYNARWHAL.com. Or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. My full name is Chin Hing Chang, CHINHINGCHANG. So let's dive into it. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Chin. I come from a background in both sales, corporate sales, but also startup. I spent the first 5 years after graduating in B2B corporate sales. I've also done some B2C, and that was mostly in the telecommunications industry, both for Bell and for Freedom Mobile. Right after leaving, I ended up starting my first company, and I went into the corporate scene, and from there I ended up working with a social venture incubator accelerator in Vancouver known as Spring. So that's where I was doing a lot of startup consulting, working with young entrepreneurs that were thinking of starting a business from the idea stage through to where they're starting to raise money from investors and then eventually growing their business. Social ventures, if you're not familiar with the term, is basically any business that is looking to be for profit, but also have some good element where it's environmental, maybe it's health, maybe it's community. And yeah, I think that was a great experience for me because I really got to learn a lot from the entrepreneurs, but really also got to work with a lot of really motivated entrepreneurs that wanted to make the world a better place in the process of running a business. So today's session, I hope to bring together the best of both worlds. Some of the best practices that you see in corporate, but also some of the innovation and creativity in the entrepreneurship world. So let's dive into that. The key things that I want to cover in this workshop will include talking a bit about how to optimize your emails to ensure that they will land in the recipient's inbox. I will go through copy as well. So copy, if you're not familiar with the term, is basically any text. So what you write, how you write it, all of that encompasses copy. And we will talk about list building as well. So how do you find people's emails? How do you find the right contact at an organization that you want to reach out to? Right, so let's get to it. So first off, let's talk a bit about the difference between sales and marketing emails. There is a big difference. Obviously, for those of you who are familiar with sales and marketing, marketing tends to be emails that are more designed to warm up the prospect. So the idea here is these are like blog articles, events, workshops, it might be promotional emails. You're not directly in a sales conversation. The biggest difference with a marketing email and a sales email is you want to send a sales email when you're ready to engage in a direct interaction with the potential customer. And what you do want to keep in mind is if a lot of you out there are business owners, or if you're in the journey of dealing with marketing and sales, you might have heard of a lot of marketing tools like MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, things like that. And these are all mail clients that send email on behalf of your company to your newsletter, to your audience. And I want to talk about this because if not done correctly, most of the times your emails will not end up in the person's inbox, but instead it will end up in their junk mail or their promotional folder. So before I go into the specific tools, let's quickly talk about how to identify the right leads, how to know if someone is qualified in order to send them a sales email versus a marketing email. So in marketing, there's this term called MQL, Marketing Qualified Lead. So what you can do is you can set up certain trackers on whatever CRM tool that you have. So CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management Tool. And these might be things like if someone has visited or read a blog post. It could be if someone has attended an event of yours. So these are what we call MQL triggers. So for example, if you know that someone has read a specific blog post about how to plan for a wedding, for example, then they might be a prospect for a wedding planner agency. Then you might want to send them different type of marketing material. So that's the idea over there. You want to track them with track and identify marketing qualified leads so that you can send them the right content that's relevant for them. The next level up is what we call a sales qualified lead, SQL. So sales qualified lead is when a prospect exhibits sales specific behavior. So for example, visiting your pricing page, maybe they have downloaded a toolkit with specific templates so that you know that they are kind of at the stage of consideration and they're starting to look for solutions and they might be ready to purchase. So what you want to do is many CRM tools will allow you to set up what we call a lead scoring. And lead scoring will allow you to attribute different scores based on behavior. So you might say if someone has visited your pricing page, they get a score of 10. But if they've read a blog post, they only get a score of 1. So all these numbers are all arbitrary, but the idea is it will help you identify warmer leads so that you can spend more time with those that are more ready to close rather than leads that are a bit colder. So don't worry too much about the technical details around how to set it up. I would say if you're in the early process of setting this up, just assign whatever score you think is fit. The end goal will still be the same. It will help you really just show and highlight the ones who are more ready to purchase versus the ones who are not. But what you want to do is you want to try to identify a sales qualified lead trigger. So what I mean by that is, for example, in certain businesses, when I was working at Spring, when we were doing education, if someone has attended 3 or more workshops, we know that they're probably ready to jump on a call, have a consultation session, and they're most likely to convert for our program. So that's where I would start to engage with them in a sales interaction rather than an email conversation. Make sense? So now that we kind of know the difference between sales and marketing emails, let's talk about the tools. So I mentioned MailChimp as one of the tools, but do know that it applies to basically almost any other email client out there. What you have to know about email clients is that they're sending emails on your behalf, on behalf of your company to many, many clients. But they're also sending emails on behalf of many other companies to many other recipients as well. And what happens here is, let's say company A is sending out spam email. And let's say John is one of the recipients and he marks company A's email as spam. What will happen is it will actually flag any email coming from MailChimp as spam, whether or not it's from company A, from your company, or from another company. The idea is his inbox is starting to recognize that MailChimp is sending spam emails. So it will likely end up in those promotional folders or spam emails. Of course, if enough people are marking company A as spam, it will actually flag the entire MailChimp server and it will actually affect the deliverability credibility for MailChimp. And basically anyone who receives an email from MailChimp, even if it's not John, will more likely end up having their email go to spam or the promotions folder. So of course, the idea is a lot of these email clients, they're doing their best to have workarounds to ensure that those emails will actually try to land in the inbox. So there are different things that you can do and different things that they do as well. So for example, you can set up DKIM records, you can set up DNS records, you can set up double opt-in features. And for them, what they're usually doing is they're having a lot of technical details where they're switching between servers, sending from different IP addresses, so it's not always marked, or even if it's marked, they can start from fresh and then have a clean server to send from as well. So do know, if you're using a mail client, typically it's okay to use it for marketing emails, but do expect that open rates are usually in the range of about 20 to 30%. That's industry average. And there's not really much that you can do even if you set everything up correctly to bump it up any higher, because that's just the way email clients are set up. So it's okay to send it with marketing emails, but if your plan is to send sales emails where you want to do a direct interaction, my recommendation here is to actually send it out through your own inbox if at all possible. And I'll go into MailMerge tools in a bit, but basically a MailMerge tool will help you send via bulk through your inbox. So I'm going to take a quick pause here just to make sure that you have some time to digest that in, and then we will move on to the next section. All right, moving on. Let's go into the email framework itself. First off, as I talk about email framework, I want to quickly remind you that when you optimize things, you always want to start at the top of the funnel. So for those of you who are not familiar with what the top of funnel means, let's say you have a marketing campaign where you have an ad, and then people go to the ad, they click on it, they go to a website or landing page, they sign up and register for a webinar, right? So that's a 3-stage funnel. It doesn't matter if you have the best copy that will convert people to register and sign up for a webinar if no one's even clicking on your ads to get to your website. So same thing with emails. Don't worry about optimizing for response rates if you have bad open rates. So always start with the subject line. So what's a good subject line? First off, I'm not going to talk about like hacks and tips and tricks. Old techniques, like it used to be the case where if you had all caps in your subject lines, people are more likely to open it up because it would stand out in the inbox. Those kind of things get tiring after a while. And once you see a lot of all cap stuff, people think it's spam and they just ignore it. A good subject line is something that speaks to the tenets of human psychology, and it's timeless. So all you really need to do with a good subject line is keep it short and sweet. So short. Number 2, make sure it's personalized in some way. And number 3 is invoke curiosity. So a good subject line might sound something like, hey, who's the best person to speak to for tech support? Or it might be, I found XYZ company on LinkedIn. And then you kind of leave it hanging so that people wonder like, okay, why did you find me on LinkedIn? Or how did you find me on LinkedIn? Or you might say something like, hey, John, I think this might help you. So you want to invoke some level of curiosity, but also have some element of personalization. So that's all you're doing with the good subject line. The next step then is, once you get good open rates, you can start to focus on improving the copy of the email. So good copy, some high-level best practices, and then we'll go into actual examples. Number 1 is email needs to be short and sweet. Email is not designed for a big discussion. Those big discussions, reserve them for phone calls or in-person meetings. With the email, all you're trying to do is you want to gradually escalate the conversation. So the mistake that I always see with a lot of people is they try to ask too many questions in emails. They try to get someone to actually close in an email, get an investor to invest. Big no-no, right? All you want to do is make them say yes or no, or actually jump onto that call or meet you in person. So that is a good email. Short and sweet. When I say short, it should be no more than 3 paragraphs. And don't do a wall of text, right? Optimize it for mobile, make sure you use spacing well. Make your paragraphs no more than 2 lines. Another thing to think about how you craft your emails is try to do it in such a way where it's plain text, or it looks like it's plain text, so it seems like it's coming from someone's inbox. If you include HTML formatting, it does make things look prettier, but it tends to look more like a marketing email. So if you're wondering, yes, you can have HTML emails because there are a lot of email trackers out there that incorporate HTML elements, but you want to format it such that it looks like a plain text email. And then the last piece I want to talk about is 2 things. Avoid jargon. So I don't care how technical your recipient is, you are sending an email to another human being. So speak like a human, don't speak like a robot, right? The more jargon you use, the more stats you use, the more it requires someone to think, and the less likely they are to respond to you. And you want to simplify your ask. Keep your ask nice and clean, no more than 1 question, and don't get people to send you something where they actually have to like put together a package or think about what they, how they want to respond. The more someone has to think in order to reply to your email, the less likely you are to get a response. Not because they want to ignore you, but because they think, okay, I'll come back to it when I have more energy to reply to this email, and then they just simply forget about it. So that's all you're doing with the email. So let's actually look at how to craft it. This great framework comes from Ramit Sethi. Ramit Sethi has this book called 50 Proven Email Scripts. And he talks about this 4 email sequence. So email number 1 is the intro email. Email number 2 is the reminder. Email number 3 is actually not an email. and email number 4 is the breakup email. So I'll go into each of them in detail, but in a nutshell, I've seen and tested this framework, and I've seen that it actually works wonders. It's really effective for myself. I've seen other entrepreneurs that I work with actually use it as well. And I see on a minimum, you typically get response rates that are at least 30%. On the higher end, anywhere from 80 to 90% as well. So try it out. I definitely recommend if you are finding that people are not responding to emails. So here's how it works. First email, all you're trying to do is get permission. Get permission to continue the conversation with whoever you're reaching out to. This first email should be no more than 3 paragraphs. So remember, each paragraph is about 2 sentences. You start off by opening and providing some context. How do you find them? How do you know them? And then you quickly transition to talking about, to giving some relevant and sincere praise. And what you're doing here is it's not just flattery. You want to actually give something that is relevant. So you might say something like, I see that retail sector is really hard hit by COVID, and I love what you're doing with your business to overcome some of these situations. So that's where you can see it's relevant and it's sincere, but at the same time, it's something that is open-ended enough that I can use it with multiple companies. So I can send it in a bulk email as well. You don't just want to say like, hey, I really love what you're doing with your company. Like that's a bit too broad, right? If you want to be even more specific, even better if you can, but it will take a bit more time for personalization. So number 2 then, now that you have done the praise, you're quickly transitioning to making your intro. So you talk about yourself and why you're reaching out to them. Don't have to give them your life story, keep it short and simple, just provide some context and why you're reaching out to them. So it might be like, I'm looking for an informational interview, I've been considering this career, I'm looking for advice on how to do sales, whatever it is. And then you ask for a response. When you ask for the response here, like I mentioned, one single question, it might just be trying to get them to say yes or no, or it might be to get them to jump into a meeting with you, right? You don't want to say like, tell me how you do sales right now. You might say something like, are you struggling with sales? Or are you making this amount of revenue right now? So those kind of questions are a bit more effective. If you're trying to get a meeting, you want to use this technique that Ramit uses, which is called the wide narrow technique. So here's how it looks like. So you might say, hey, I would love to jump on a call with you. Are you available next Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Friday at 4 p.m.? If neither of those times work for you, I'm also happy to work around your schedule. So I'll break it down. So basically, the narrow part is Tuesday 2 p.m. or Friday 4 p.m. And it's narrow because it makes it easy for someone to say yes. They can pick a time immediately if it works for them. They don't have to go into their calendar and try to figure out what's the best time. So it makes it easier for them to say yes. The wide part where you're saying, if neither of those times work, I'm also happy to work around your schedule. That is necessary because it acknowledges that they are in the position of power. And you want to do this because you are the one asking for a favor. You don't just want to say, hey, here are 2 times, you pick and choose, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So you always want to say, hey, happy to work around your schedule as well. The common question I get over here is, what about using calendar scheduling tools like Calendly? Those are okay, but you have to be careful about how you word it. It can be read the wrong way if you just say, hey, here's my calendar. Because again, remember, position of power when you're making a request. So you might say something like, hey, to avoid or to save time, back and forth emails, picking a time, here's my calendar to find a time. I'm also happy to find time in your calendar system if you have one. So you can use something like that. Otherwise, that is all you're doing with the first email. In the second email, what you're doing is it's a simple reminder. Do not send other information. Don't say, hey, thought you should check out this article or check out this event. No, none of those. Don't say, hey, how come I haven't heard back from you or haven't heard back from you? Like, don't do any of that. Just say, hey, I'm not sure if you missed my first email, just giving this a bump in your inbox. That's all you're doing with the second email. You might have to change the date and times if enough time has passed, but that's all you're doing. You reply in line, you reply to the same email, same subject line. You only change the subject line if the person has not opened the first email and you want to test a different subject line, but don't say something like follow-up email, right? You can test something different to try to get them to open. And then same thing, you're still replying in line to the first email so that people see it. So that's email number 2. Email number 3, like I mentioned, is not an email. So what you're doing over here is you're actually saying something like, hey, not sure if email is the best way to reach you. Just thought I'd try reaching out to you via phone call. Or maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook, whatever is appropriate for your audience. So you say, hey, not sure if email is the best way to reach you. Thought I'd try calling you. And then you repeat the same ask all over again. And if you do it this way, you will not come across as pushy, I promise you. You're just saying like, hey, I'm not sure if you missed my first email, not sure if email is the best way to reach you, just thought I'd try reaching out to you. And that is basically the 3 email sequence up to here. You repeat the ask, you might change the date and times again. And then the 4th contact is what we call the breakup email. At this point, most of the people that you're reaching out to probably have already seen one of your communication in one place or another, and they might not have replied either because they are thinking about the response or they simply are not interested. The breakup email allows them to just quickly respond either yes or no, so that you can either qualify or disqualify them and save some time. So here's what the breakup email looks like. You start with the guilty parachute. So you might say something like, hey, not sure if your company has been suspended during COVID. I just thought I'd try one last time because I really value your input, as I see that you are an expert in this industry. So that's how it might sound. And then you repeat the ask again. And I'll break it down again. So the guilty parachute, what you're doing is first you make them feel, you give them an easy out. So you give them an excuse, but then you're also making them feel a bit guilty. So like my statement over there was, not sure if your company has been suspended, so giving them an excuse. You might say something else like, hey, not sure if you've been on vacation for summer. So you give them an excuse, and then you make them feel guilty, really value your input because I think that you are an expert in this industry. Or you might say something like, I really thought that your company cares about security, and I wanted to be able to discuss some of those issues with you. So you make them feel guilty, and then you say, this is the last try. Not going to bother you anymore, even if you don't respond. And people will usually be happy to actually just respond and either tell you a yes or no. So that's all you're doing with this email, and then you repeat the ask again. That's it. So if you have this 4 email sequence, I pretty much guarantee you that your response rates will go up. So definitely give it a try. So maybe I'm going to take a quick pause here. Any questions, like usual, feel free to send me an email, chin, CHIN, at classynarwhal.com. Narwhal is spelled NARWHAL. And I will get back in a few seconds just to go into actual examples and case studies. But in the meantime, let that digest with you, and I'll see you soon. All right, ready for more? Let's look at some actual case studies, some actual live emails. So I'm going to be looking at my screen a bit more rather than the phone, just to actually look at some of these emails and break it down for you. But let's look at this one. So this one, first, the good things. Good things is he makes good use of spacing. You can see a lot of white space, easy to read. Lines are not too long. But obviously some of the bad things, no personalization, just a hi. Moving too quickly into the pitch, diving into pricing, way too many call to actions. So check out our brand book here, check out our work here, visit my website. And the actual call to action is a bit vague as well, right? He doesn't actually say anything. He says, please let me know your thoughts. Like, what does that mean? What should I be doing with this email? So those are some things that he can improve on. And these are emails that have actually landed in my inbox. So this is another example. Subject line, actually not too bad. Discount or perks for entrepreneurs of Spring, Vancouver. So it did prompt some curiosity. I did end up opening up the email. Personalization. So number 1, he sent it to the help@spring.is email instead of my email or anyone else's email. He could have easily found one of our emails just by going on our team page. Both, it's actually on there, but you can also see who is working for the company. Or if not, you can also use the email checking tool to find out the specific email. So I'll show you how to do that later when we get to list building. But the idea here is he could have made it a bit more personal. So hello, could be hello Chin, hello Keith, whatever it is. He dives too quickly into the pitch. So he starts by opening up about himself rather than talking about how he found us. So he says, hey, I'm Daniel, CEO of Edit. Would probably be a bit better if he said, hey, I found Spring because I was looking for companies that do XYZ, right? Again, moving too quickly to pitching, you can see, I think we can reach an agreement with Spring to offer Edit to your clients. We offer blah, 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 blah. So he dives into actually pitching, pricing. You can see there's price here and there. He does a lot of what we call feature dumping, 1 gigabyte of space, access to exclusive images, resize designs with a single click. Who cares, right? Don't feature pitch. You should always pitch based on benefit and values. So you might say, hey, a lot of entrepreneurs typically need help with marketing design. I think we might be able to help with that because we offer solutions that are entrepreneur friendly, right? If he worded it that way, instead of diving into features, I would be more responsive to it. Call to action, again, no clear call to action. If you need more information or have any questions, we will discuss it without a problem. Like, what the hell do you want me to do with that, right? So those are some comments I have on that quick email. Let's take a look at another one. So this one over here, what do we have? I like to do corporate socks for your company. So my comments over here is, you can, that's the previous one, sorry. So this other one. So what I want to draw to your attention over here is subject line, website development, not a good subject line. It ended up in my spam filter. So again, not a good thing, no personalization. But notice two things. One is he starts the first sentence with an apology. Never start by saying you're sorry. You should always start with the assumption that the recipient has something to gain, something of value from interacting with you. Don't say, hey, I apologize if I have disturbed your day or anything like that. Don't do that. And then look at the end, look at the ask. If you are interested, share your requirement and I can send company information and make a quote. Sharing your requirement, that's a very big ask. It requires me to put together a package, think about what I need, and therefore much lower likelihood that I will respond to the email. So make your ask short and simple. Usually close-ended questions are best to escalate the relationship. Don't try to get them to do everything all in the first interaction. Again, feature dumping, right? Website design, e-commerce, web development, like, why do I care? Like, how are you different from all the other companies that are pitching me website development? Another one here. So this one, very interesting things I want to point out. So you look at the customization. So it says, Dear Chang Chen Heng, it's my full name. Please clean your list before you mail merge. This was probably sent through some sort of either mailing client or MailMerge tool. Never have the full name there. So it should be Dear Chin, right? Or even better, like if you have people and you know that sometimes some common names will be truncated, for example, like Hello Douglas, it might be Hello Doug, or Hey Michael, it might be Hey Mike. You can also shorten it to that as well. It seems a bit more personal, feels more personal. Look at how the person follow-ups. So number one is look at the subject line. Subject line is share your requirement, and then follow-up is follow-up email. Don't change the subject line. Only change the subject line if the person did not reply to the first email. Did not open the first email. And then you can see over here, just wanted to check, have you checked my previous email? It comes across as a bit pushy. Instead of wording it that way, you might just say, hey, I'm not sure if you missed my previous email. Instead of, just wanted to check if you checked my previous email. Yeah, so I think those are the 2 points I want to quickly point out on that. This one over here, you see the same issue with the merge tag where he's going full name. Again, too many call to actions, too many links. He uses bolding to effectively draw attention to call to action, so that's not too bad. But again, too many things that he's bolding. And if you notice over here, the call to action, the main call to action is in the middle of the email. You should always have it at the end of the email if possible. So link to apply, deadline for application. So some good things. So scarcity. He mentions, deadline to apply is just 2 days away. So it drives urgency, right? He uses credible names. So we have confirmed the participation of Honda, Toyota, Siemens. So that's kind of good. You can use that kind of tool if you want to build some credibility, some social proofing. Please reply back to this email if you'd like to get started. So yeah, that's actually not too bad. But there's link to apply and reply to this email. So there are two conflicting and different call to actions. So it could be improved. So maybe I'll show you one email with a client that I work with in one of my workshops. So this one is by Erica. There are some areas of improvement, but it's actually a pretty good start. So you can see over here, hello there, I was just reading about Chief's virtual launch in Boston and think that the support you provide for women C-suite executives is awesome. So if you notice, nice short opening. It frames the context. I was just reading how did they find out about Chief. There's relevant and sincere praise. I like the support that you provide for women C-suite executives. What she's doing in the second sentence, Chief's two founders and I share a Boston undergraduate degree in common. What she's trying to do is she's trying to build rapport by finding some common ground. But I would say you could probably leave out this sentence because it's not relevant to this email. So you build rapport and you can use common ground techniques if it's relevant to your ask. But otherwise leave it out. Are you looking for any support around your Boston launch? So that's actually one question itself that is a call to action. So actually probably take away the question mark if you want to. And then the main call to action might be more on, I would love to jump on a call with you. So you can make it as a statement instead of like more of a rhetoric question than an active question. And then notice she goes into an intro. I'm a productivity organizing expert, and I cover workplace topics, blah, 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 blah. And then you can see, I was just thinking your members might appreciate and benefit from my empowered boundaries, tools, and strategies for peak productivity, peace, and profit. I'm presenting virtually in a congress for organizers of Brazil, right? And then a link. So if you notice, there's actually 3 call to actions. Are you looking for support? Click this link, and then I want to chat with you. Could be tidied up. So instead of having too many call to actions, just have one. When you're using a credibility point, you probably actually don't need to link to the organization. You can just say, hey, I'm also speaking to this organization. And then the primary call to action is, I would love to talk with someone who's the right contact. I would recommend that this would be an active question. So actually have a question mark. Who is the best person to contact? But what Erica could probably have done a lot better as well is I did a simple LinkedIn search on Chief, and I immediately found the founders. I got their names, and I was able to find their emails as well through my email checking tool. So if she had done and included that, it would have been a lot more personal. She could have directly said, hey, whoever the name is, here's how I found your company. Let's jump on a call. So it's a bit more direct that way. So if you can find the right contact person, try to do so. I mentioned that you can use these type of techniques in anything, not just emails as well. So here's an example on a LinkedIn message. So Elizabeth reached out to me. She said, hey, Chin, I've built a successful product agency and I'm writing a profile series on onboarding do's and don'ts. Your name and background came up on my growth radar. Would you be open to sharing how you've converted traffic? So notice that's a very short and sweet sentence there. This single paragraph is doing her intro. She is giving some context on how she found me, and she's making an ask. And the ask is a close-ended ask. Would you be open to sharing? She's not asking me to share how I do it. So I responded, and then we ended up in a conversation. We actually jumped on a call as well. So that's actually a really good intro. This is one of my emails, so I'll actually walk you through the example that I sent over here. So I was sending out emails to find companies on Gust, and Gust is a platform where companies will list themselves if they're looking for investors, because we ran a program at Spring where we did fundraising training. So my opening is, hey Janet, great to meet you. I hope you're doing well. I could probably scratch the first line. I came across Teen Job Find on Gust, so there's some personalization you can see in the subject line, also in email. And I believe we have aligned values, so that's where I'm doing that relevant and sincere praise to use business as a force for good. I would like to hear more about your impact-driven venture. That is not an active question, it's just more of a rhetoric question. We help mission-driven companies around the world, so that's my intro. That are raising seed capital. I give specifics, especially if they're looking to get it from impact investors. And then here is my main call to action. Was wondering, are you currently raising round of funding or planning to in the next 6 months? And then I just quickly reiterate what I do. We specialize in providing training, coaching, and mentorship on fundraising. Let me know if you're raising, so repeating the ask again, and we can dig deeper and see if we can collaborate. So that is how I framed it. And look at my response. So I think results speak for itself. Open rates, this is just one of the many campaigns that I sent out. Open rates here for this one is 87%. So I sent 56 or 58 emails, 47 of them were opened. And even better response rates, 46 of the 47 emails were responded. So even if some of them were no, that's fine. At least I get to qualify or disqualify my lead right away. So I'm not wasting my time trying to follow up with them. So that's one quick example. So I think I'm going to pause here, went through a lot of great examples. And when we come back, we're going to talk about list building. And I'll actually walk you through what I just talked about, how to find the right contact, how to dig up their email. All right, let's talk a bit about list building. So let's go through the process, and I'll give you some live examples as well on how to find the right person to reach out to and how to find their emails as well. So the workflow, this is the workflow in a nutshell. You want to start by finding a list of companies. This can be through LinkedIn, it could be through AngelList, Google, whatever it is, association list, Excel sheets. A quick Google hack is you can actually search .csv to actually find the file type, and that might also help you find the right listings of companies as well. So maybe I can actually give that a shot over here. So I remembered when I was looking for B corporations, bcorp.csv. So B Corp is basically a certified corporation that is a do good business. And it actually pulled up this over here, B Corp Impact Data CSV. And this was actually a list I used to build one of my outreach campaigns. And I think this list had close to 10,000 organizations. So yeah, try that out. You can use, let's say, California retail.csv, and you might be able to find some data sets. But the idea is try finding a list of companies first. Once you know which company you want to reach out to, the next thing to do is to try to find who the right decision maker is. You can do this if they're a medium or small company by going on their website. It's usually on the About Us page or the team page, or you can look them up on LinkedIn, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you can use a tool like Hunter or Viola and Norbert to guess their emails, and I'll show you that as well. And then once you have that process down, you can start to automate it by outsourcing or getting a virtual assistant. And then once you have your list built, then the next step is to clean the list and then craft your email and review it for copy spamminess, and then you send the mail merge. So let's actually go through all of those steps one by one. So first off, list building. This is another tool. Growth Genius, they use a LinkedIn plugin to do that. But once you have a list, so I'll show you an example over here. So I'm actually currently doing some outreach over here, and I'm actually going to try to not have any emails shown. But basically here, I'm doing an outreach for a hackathon that I'm planning in October. So I'm brainstorming some organizations. So you can brainstorm the organizations yourself, or you can find them on a list. Then the next step here is you have the list now. You want to find who you want to reach out to. So over here, let's say I'm looking for Salt Spring Coffee. I might just do a search on Google, and you want to pull up their website. Maybe you can look for company, our story, see if it's listed here. If not, again, not a big deal. Usually bigger companies don't have a team page. You can look for LinkedIn. And this is how you do the search on LinkedIn. You just put in your company name. And then over here, you can see on the right, there's a see all employees. And you can try to guess the right person. So maybe I'm trying to reach out to Mikey McLeod, who's the CEO. So then I might say over here, Mike, let me get the spelling right. So you can see I'm actually cleaning it as I go. I'm not going Mikey McLeod. Mike is probably what he goes by. And CEO is his title. And now the next step is to get his email. So decision maker will really vary depending on your product, your service, and your customer. But like I mentioned, the team page or About Us page, I showed you LinkedIn. And then, yeah, if you can't find them through LinkedIn as well, another option is you can use filters on LinkedIn. If it's a very big company, there are many people, you can filter by title. Or you can also just go by first and second degree connections and try to get a warm intro to the right person by connecting through someone that you already know in your network. So that's another way of doing it. But let's assume I'm trying to reach out to Mike. The next step is to guess the email. So this is a tool, it's called hunter.io. And how it works is when you put in the website of the company you're trying to reach out to, it will try to guess the email. So you can see over here, it actually shows you the pattern for this company is first name at saltspringcoffee.com. So here, you can actually see it's Mikey at saltspringcoffee.com. It actually shows you. These, you can see it's actually blanked out. It's showing the AAs, but it's not AA, it's actually Mikey, right? Because we actually know his name. So I'll actually put in his email here. It's Mikey at saltspringcoffee.com. Make sure I clean up the formatting over here. And there you go. I have his contact info and I am ready to send it. So once you have that, the next step is to automate that list building process. You might get someone to actually do this for you because it's quite manual, it's quite repetitive. Some tips around automation. If you're going to outsource on a platform like Upwork, you want to be as specific as possible. When you try to outsource anything, the more specific instructions you get, the better the results you get, because people who are cheap labor don't generally do things that require a lot of thought. So give them specifics, like tell them like what to do, move on if you can't find the contact, or these are alternatives. So you can reach out to the CEO, the HR person, or let's say a VP person. You want them to make sure that they don't spend more than half an hour trying to work on a specific contact for a specific company, for example. You might also test different people to see who can build a more effective list, a cleaner list more quickly. So you might hire 5 different freelancers and give them the same assignment and see, who will give you the best quality list and whose list is longer as well. So those are some quick tips around outsourcing. Now that you have your list, the next step is to clean it. So these are the 4 things that I do. Number 1 is dedupe. Sometimes you get people who accidentally get entered twice the same email. Make sure you remove them. It is okay to reach out to multiple people at the same organization, but I recommend not to reach out to more than 3 people at the same organization. Reaching out to a few does help, because sometimes one person might not be the right contact. Maybe they don't check their inbox as frequently, or just having more touch points really raises awareness, and maybe they have a conversation and they might say, hey, you know what? Hey, did you see that email from John? I also received it, or something like that. Number 2, once you dedupe, you want to make sure that those emails are valid. Maybe someone has left the organization, or maybe there's a typo in the email. So verify the email using an email checker. The one I use is Bulk Email Checker. It's a paid tool, but there are some free ones out there that give you some limits with checking. And then, like I mentioned, tidy up the first names. Make sure you're actually personalizing it. So in Mike's case, since he actually goes by Mikey, I will actually use Mikey, which I can see with his email. So you tidy up the email, the first name, and then you also want to make sure you tidy up the company name. So over here with the company, Salt Spring Coffee, that's fine. But if it says like Salt Spring Coffee Incorporated, Ltd, like those kind of extra words, you want to make sure that you remove them. So over here, like BCSPA, I might say, hey, I found SPCA on wherever it is. Vancouver Police Department, I might say, hey, I found VPD, right? So use those short forms to make it a bit more personalized. And here's a quick tool you can use if you're using Google Sheet. It's called Power Tools by AbleBits. And it allows you to remove leading trailing spaces. It allows you to remove by specific order of letters. It allows you to remove substrings. So it just kind of makes all the tidying up a bit quicker. If, let's say, your email was created with a bunch of lowercase letters with their first names, you can automatically uppercase all of the first letters in the column as well. Email checker. So I mentioned Bulk Email Checker. This is what it does. You can see over here, I put in this email here, chin_chang at hotmail at spring.is, and it actually tells me this email address does not exist. Do know that with email checkers, some emails will not be checkable. So for example, you might see a response that actually says Amex unknown. And that usually happens if they have, for larger companies, if they've set up their servers to direct all emails that go to a wrong email address to a catch-all email address. So for those, nothing much you can do to verify, so don't worry too much about it. But if you do get a wrong email, it will tell you, and you can try to guess the right format, right? Common formats include like first name at, you could go first name dot last name at, first name underscore last name at, maybe first name hyphen last name. Sometimes it's first name and then initial last name. Sometimes it's last name and then initial first name. So you can try different formats to test around and try to guess the email. And then the last thing to do is, once you've crafted the email, you can use this tool. It's called Mail Tester. It's just mailtester.com. And if you send an email to them, it will actually rate your email. It will actually look at things like your authentication, your wording. Are you using too many links? Using broken links, things like that. And once you're all ready to go, then you send the MailMerge. So that's what the MailMerge draft looks like. And this is for Google if you're using yet another MailMerge, which is a tool that goes through the Google Sheets. If you use other tools, they might have different formats. It might not be the same bracket. Some of them use the squiggly bracket. Some of them use the rounded brackets. Really doesn't matter. So yet another MailMerge, how it works is you go to Google tool, the add-ons. So I'll just show you here. add-ons, yet another MailMerge, start MailMerge, and it will ask you to select a draft email that's in your inbox. So again, make sure you're logged in with the right Google account that you're sending from, especially if you have a personal account and a corporate account. So I actually know that I'm on my personal account, so I don't have a draft template here. But if you, let's say if I log in with my company account, I'll give it some time to load. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. So let me quickly change my screen. So you can see I go add-ons, yet another MailMerge, start MailMerge. And what it will do is it will look at my inbox and it will look at my draft folder. And if there's an email there, I can select the right email. Always send a test email first to make sure all your merge tags are working correctly. And then once you're good to go, then you can hit send. So yeah, that is an example of how you go through the prospecting process to build a list. And yeah, you can see I have these companies over here, organizations, and then I'm trying to find the right contact. So I was talking about Salt Spring Coffee, Mikey, CEO, the email, and then I can do my MailMerge. But I think that is basically the process in a nutshell. And I think we can wrap it up here. So just a quick reminder, what we went through is sales emails should go out through your inbox. Not only sales emails, any personal email that you're actually trying to get a direct interaction with. MailMerge, that's how you actually send bulk. You want to escalate the conversation gradually. You're not trying to do too much in one interaction, and you want to be as human as possible. So craft the email, and then you build your list, you check, make sure it's not spammy, and then you send. So that's basically it. I'm going to skip over the upcoming workshop stuff. But any questions, here's my contact info. You can send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email. And that's basically it. For those of you who are wondering if you want to work more with me on detail, I'm going to go into a bit of a small spiel. But basically, this is how I talk about what I offer. First off, if you are asking me like, hey Chin, can you help me with my email campaigns? My answer over here is I don't typically do that. That's where you actually outsource to someone on Upwork. It is pretty menial task to actually be doing list building. I'm more on the strategic side of things. So I can guide you with sales strategy and stuff, but I'm not going to build lists for you or review your copy or craft your emails for you, right? So what I do run is I have this Startup Sales Academy. And what it is it's a 4-week program for tech co-founders, people who don't have business background and experience, to really understand how to sell, build a sales strategy, get your customers on board, negotiate, things like that. I do have different cohorts. The next upcoming one is on October 13th. But yeah, this is basically the program. It does go into a lot of detail. I go into sales fundamentals. I talk about buyer psychology. I go through growth engines. We talk about revenue model and pricing. We go into how to create sales experiments as well. I'll go through how to create a sales strategy, or what I call a sales and marketing map. I'll talk more in detail about tools and automation. We'll go into using funnels, how to create funnels, list building, which I talked about, goal setting and metrics, how to measure the right things, how to hire the right people, interview salespeople. And then lastly, we'll talk about techniques as well. So how do you ask for the sale? How do you overcome objections? How do you pitch? How do you do it in such a way that's not manipulative, right? So those are some of the things that I'll cover in the workshop. I'll even give you templates, tools, and checklists as well. So call scripts, email writing, copywriting checklists, customer persona templates, all that kind of stuff. All the good stuff that will basically set you up so that you can start to hire salespeople to automate your process for you. It is a pretty intensive program. It is 4 weeks long. The program itself is about 5 hours a week, plus another I'd say 2 to 3 hours in terms of assignments. So it's mostly designed for founders, but if you have a first-time sales hire, it's a good program for them as well. So yeah, that's basically what I have. So if you're interested in learning a bit more, you can check out the website. It's classynowl.com/startup-sales-academy. And yeah, if you're interested in working more, I'm happy to support you through this program. And that is basically it. I think we can wrap up the session today. All right, have a good evening.